It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. I actually feel fine this time.
Oh, you've come to peace with the end?
Honestly, I've come to peace with it. I've come to terms with it. I'm ready to go.
Okay, I'm going to say, and I feel a little apprehensive, but I am ready to be fine, hopefully by the end of the story.
Oh, you won't. No, this segment is
good.
going
Okay.
to put an end to all of the good feelings that you might have about the world today.
Well, hooray.
Okay. Today I'm teaching y'all about the prophecy of Saint Malachi, or as it's more often referred to, the prophecy of the popes.
Oh, yes. I have not done enough of a deep dive. I'm so stoked.
Remember when we were texting and I was like, I swear I've already done this. Like, I remember doing it and I couldn't find any evidence. I Googled keep it weird Pope. Keep it weird.
I love that you do that because
Malachi.
I do that
Keep
as well
weird.
when I'm trying to see if we did it.
Because sometimes it'll come up and be like, oh, keep it weird, ancient electricity. And I'm like, oh, fucking great.
I'm so glad.
And nothing. And I looked through our end times episodes where we talked about like end times prophecies. It wasn't there. And I was going crazy. So I was like, maybe I haven't done it. So I started doing my research and like every step of the way, I'm like, I've done this before. So finally I was like, well, whatever. I'm just going to do it. Then after I get all my notes done, I decide, oh, you know what? I didn't look in our OneDrive. So I searched in our OneDrive, in my OneDrive, and I found it. I wrote notes on this in 2020 in our finale episode. Oh. It was like a finale. It was me, you, and Joe doing like an end of the year roundup. Yeah.
Yes. That's why.
I took all the notes for it, and naturally, you, me, and Joe couldn't stick to the script. I never freaking did it. So I've taken notes on this, and now here we are 4 years later.
Yes. And I thought it was familiar, but not as much as you, because you took full-on notes on it. But I was going to talk about it on our like apocalypse or prophecy episode, but we already had so much that I was like, I'm going to leave this out. So it's just like, oh my gosh, it's meant to be.
It's meant to be.
Prophecy fulfilled.
And there was a little bit of a synchronicity too, because the person who initially told me about this prophecy was Andrew Miller. What? Hey, Mill. You guys remember that name?
What up, Andrew? Still have never met you, but I feel like I know you and I love you.
And literally, like 5 days ago, I'm hanging out with Andrew Miller, which is the first time this year in 2024.
Which is wild.
That I've even seen him aside from his wedding. And I told him, like, oh, by the way, I'm finally doing this story we talked about 4 years ago. So here we are 4 years later, and not a moment too soon.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Ashley.
So back in the day, Nostradamus wasn't the only guy who was writing cryptic revelations and prophecies about the future. Saint Malachi was doing the same thing. This was back in 1100 AD.
Okay.
So Saint Malachi was the Archbishop of Armagh and the first ever native-born Irish saint to be formally canonized. He was attributed several miracles, and they were the usual: healing the sick, exorcisms, and even bringing fish back to the island when people were starving. But he was most well known for his supposed gift of prophecy. Saint Bernard claims he even predicted the day and hour of his own death. But, of course, we all have to just take Bernard's word for that.
Bernard.
No one got it on tape. Okay? So,
also, if like you can't just say Saint Bernard, and I'm not going to imagine that he looks like a giant dog.
Like Beethoven.
We literally talked about this on our last
just did it.
Can't get those dogs.
You're thinking of a Bernese Mountain Dog. Beethoven is a Saint Bernard.
Oh my God. Why can I not be?
Why can you not remember these dogs?
Just enough. Don't. I can't get these dogs straight. Oh. Continue, Saint Bernard.
So he predicted his own death. Whatever. Saint Malachi. He died. He's dead. But then.
Okay, he's gone.
In 1590, so this is like 400 years later, Benedictine Arnold de Wyon discovered and published a manuscript that was supposedly written by Saint Malachi that he found in the Vatican archives. The manuscript contains 112 cryptic Latin phrases that Saint Malachi supposedly jotted down after he had gone into a trance and received a strange vision in which he foresaw all of the popes from that moment to the end of days.
Wild.
And much like Nostradamus, now that we live in the future, we can look at the list he made and make comparisons to like each corresponding pope and his cryptic writings and the similarities, and it's wild. And I'll give you a few examples here regarding some of our little popies of the past.
Let's hear about the little popies.
I also learned a lot about some popes, which I enjoyed. So
I was gonna say, I'm like, I know like 2 popes, so I'm excited for you to educate me. I had to hear them in like my Catholic upbringing, but like really didn't know anything.
I was Lutheran, so we didn't do popes or saints, which is kind of a bummer because I feel like saints are really magical and witchy.
They totally are. That is the one part I loved about Catholicism, was when we would talk about the saints, because it was like, if you've lost something, just pray to this saint, and that feels so witchy. It's basically like, hold this crystal.
Exactly.
And think about it real hard.
The 85th Pope.
Pope back to
Clement the 10th. Was written as being from a great river. Now, Pope Clement was the pope from 1670 to 1676. So this was long after St. Malachi had written these prophecies and died, and long after he died, 500 years after he died, okay? On the day of Pope Clement's birth, the Tiber River was overflowing. From a great river.
Whoa.
Interesting. The 90th Pope, Pope Innocent XIII, was from good religion, and this matches up because there were several popes that came from his family line. The 106th Pope, Pope Pius VII, was called an angelic shepherd, which scholars think fits really well because during his role in the Holocaust, wherein he directed his church to provide aid to the Jews and others, saving tens of thousands of lives. And I learned this is so cool. Even before he was the Pope, he was the Cardinal Secretary of State, which is basically like the head of foreign policy for the Vatican, because they're basically a country. And he was vocally anti-Nazism and even helped draft a letter to all the churches, of which they distributed over 300,000 copies in secret, that basically told people that Nazis were a disgrace to God.
We love this. We love this.
That was so dangerous. And
that is so dangerous to be that vocal about, like, to speak against any of that. Like,
I know.
Okay.
The Gestapo raided the churches the next day and confiscated all of the copies they could find, and any press that printed them were shut down. Like, it was a huge risk. So he was the angelic shepherd.
Oh, love that, though.
The words of the 108th Pope are translated as flower of flowers. Now, that Pope was Paul VI, and his coat of arms included 3 fleur-de-lis, 3 flowers. Ooh. Flower of flowers. The 109th Pope was translated as, this is insane, the 109th Pope is translated as of the half moon, and that Pope was John Paul, who was born in the Diocese of Belluno, beautiful moon, and he became Pope on a night in 1978 when the moon was exactly half full in its waning phase, he died the following month, right after a total eclipse of the moon.
Total eclipse of the moon. Oh my gosh, John Paul, you fulfilled.
John Paul.
John Paul.
Just give me the life.
And I got the half moon. That is wild. Okay.
It's a little crazy.
Okay. I like it.
Right after him, the 110th Pope is translated as of the solar eclipse, and that Pope would be John Paul II, who was born during a total eclipse of the sun. He was also buried during a solar eclipse. The 111th Pope is the glory of the olive, and Pope Benedict was literally known for his efforts to promote peace worldwide. He was the first Pope in 600 years to step down instead of just fucking die. So people often see his handing off of the throne as a link to the handing off of or extending an olive branch.
Oh, my Lanta.
Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but Benedict was Pope 111. We're running out of popes because we are currently, right now, as we speak, living in the time of the final pope.
No.
112, baby.
You're right. Okay, so we are in the end times. But again, I should be stressed, but I weirdly feel at peace. I've had a nice time, but I'm kind of stressed out and like I'm okay to say see you later.
The 112th prophecy reads as such, quote, "In extreme persecution, the seat of the Holy Roman Church will be occupied by Peter the Roman, who will feed the sheep through many tribulations, at the term of which the city of 7 hills, Rome, will be destroyed, and the formidable judge will judge his people." The end.
The end.
No big deal, just the end.
The end.
The end. ... Fade to black. No more popes. Now, Peter the Roman, our current pope, is Pope Francis I, named after Saint Francis of Assisi, whose full name was Francesco de Pietro Peter di Bernardone, an Italian who was once a beggar in Rome. Peter the Roman. He is our last pope.
I just feel like I also wish I had like an Italian flag. I wish I had a flag of planet Earth.
Just a white flag. Surrender.
Yeah, I surrender. I mean, that's it. Like, we're done. We're all done.
Pretty terrifying. But here's the thing. And what I like to remind people when they're being told that it's the end. Apocalypses happen all the time. Endings.
Right.
Revelations. The death tarot card. The end doesn't necessarily mean the world's going to be destroyed. It may actually signify the beginning of something. A new era. A totally new birth of the world. Or even, it could be talking about the fall of the Catholic Church. They've had some trials and tribulations.
They've had some issues. And besides all of the like super horrific things that we know, to be honest, like the last pope that you mentioned, who was like way more progressive than most recent popes, I thought that was going to be the ending, because I felt like everyone was so up in arms of like, you are not traditional and you're trying to change things. It felt like that made a little bit of a shift as well. So I don't know.
I don't know.
It crumbling down.
It could. But, and also, this is just another tidbit that's probably going to make a lot of people feel better and more safe. Several historians think that this is a 16th century forgery, that Saint Malachi actually did not write this. And the reasons they think that is, so Saint Bernard, the contemporary biographer of Malachi, Saint Malachi, who recorded his alleged miracles, never mentions the Pope prophecy. It's kind of weird. You'd think that in his writings he might mention this pretty big thing that happened. And the earliest known reference to all of it is from 1587, when a Spanish monk wrote about these supposed prophecies. And then in the 1700s, a scholar compared the verses that came before the publication of the manuscript to the ones that came after the publication. So like at this time, there was like 200 years in between. So the prophecies that were written from 1100 AD to 1590 AD were super accurate. And then the ones from 1590 to 1730, not so much. So he was thinking these had to actually been written around the time they were published, not 400 years prior when Saint Malachi was alive.
All right, so some questions.
About the document. The conspiracy goes even further because there was a 17th century French priest, Louis Moreri, that claimed it may have been written in support of Cardinal Simoncelli, in support of his bid to become pope during the 1590 conclave. Basically, he believed this document was a fake that was created and an unsuccessful attempt to demonstrate or prove that Simoncelli was destined to be the pope. Like, basically, he wrote his pope prophecy to be like, see? Like, it says he's going to be our next pope.
This is it.
And
like,
it didn't work.
You can't doubt it. The prophecy. Sorry.
So
sometimes campaign promises just don't
pan out. Despite the insistence of a lot of scholars saying the document was a forgery, it's still super weird.
It's very weird.
So many of the popes have connections to the prophecies. But as with Nostradamus,
a lot of it,
the prophecies are also very vague. And that's like, you know, it could be anything. Like, you could make it fit into what you want it to fit in.
Which people say about horoscopes all the time. Like, we make it work.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to make it work, you can make it work. And I do understand that, but also, it's all true.
It's all true.
Aliens are real. And I am a witch. And Ashley is a
right
witch.
Now. It's coming.
It's fine. Like, just believe us.
This is going to remain a mystery unsolved. But I guess if the world ends on Pope Francis's watch, we will finally know the truth. And you all, lucky kids, can go to Prophecy of the Pope's Wikipedia, and you can read every single prophecy and how it possibly connects with the Pope at the time. If you want to take a look for yourself. Compare the popes to their Pope prophecies.
Subscribe, like and subscribe. I mean, that is still wild. Like, it's wild no matter what, but interesting that there are some questionable moments.
They do seem, I mean, there was a couple that lined up in really weird fucking ways.
Yes, where I, like, almost threw up, but, you know, we'll see.
Where I almost barfed.
I was violently ill over here. No, but...